Welcome back, devoted collectors, sharp-eyed treasure hunters, and everyone who loves discovering unbelievable value hiding in plain sight to Rare Coin Legacy, the channel where a single cent can rewrite financial history and where minting mistakes become legends. Because today, we are uncovering one of the most famous and endlessly debated modern penny stories of all time. The astonishing 1984 D1 cent that, under extremely rare and extraordinary circumstances, has been rumored and theorized to reach a staggering $12 million valuation due to a powerful convergence of minting errors, production failures, transitional conditions, and collector-driven scarcity that together elevate a simple Lincoln cent into the highest tier of modern numismatic icons. And to truly understand how a 1984 D penny could ever be discussed in the same breath as multi-million-dollar treasures, you must first understand that the early 1980s were one of the most chaotic and experimental periods in the history of United States cent production, because the mint had just transitioned away from solid bronze cents in 1982 to copper-plated zinc planchets, a massive change driven by rising copper prices, and this transition was not clean or simple, as leftover bronze planchets, experimental blanks, and testing materials were still present in mint facilities for years afterward, creating an environment where wrong metal strikes became not just possible but inevitable, and the Denver Mint in particular was operating under immense pressure to produce billions of cents annually, often pushing machinery, dies, and quality control systems beyond ideal limits. And this combination of high volume, new materials, aging equipment, and human oversight set the stage for some of the most dramatic minting errors ever recorded. Starting with the most famous and foundational error associated with the 1984 D cent, the legendary doubled ear variety, an error so well known that it has become a gateway discovery for collectors. Yet, when taken to its most extreme and rare manifestations, it becomes the cornerstone of the $12 million valuation theory. Because the doubled ear on certain 1984 D cents is not the result of machine vibration or strike doubling, but a true doubled die obverse created during the die hubbing process, where the design was impressed multiple times at slightly misaligned positions, resulting in a distinct and clearly separated second ear lobe on Lincoln's portrait that looks almost like an extra anatomical feature. And true doubled dies are fundamentally different from common doubling because they are embedded into the die itself, meaning every coin struck from that die carries the same diagnostic markers. But what pushes a hypothetical $12 million 1984 D cent beyond the already famous doubled ear variety is the possibility of an exceptionally early die state where the doubling is bold, crisp, and combined with other catastrophic die failures that occurred as the die continued to degrade, because as production continued, the same doubled die could develop severe die cracks, internal fractures, and metal flow distortions that radically altered the appearance of the coin, creating a layered error where hub doubling and die deterioration coexist on the same surface. And then there is the explosive possibility that a small number of 1984 D cents were struck on leftover solid bronze planchets instead of copper-plated zinc, a scenario that numismatic history has already proven possible through confirmed examples of 1983 bronze cents and other transitional errors, and a 1984 D cent struck on bronze would immediately stand out by weight, sound, color, and long-term toning behavior. And if such a coin also displayed the doubled ear obverse and advanced die deterioration, its rarity would become almost unimaginable, because it would represent the intersection of a transitional metal error and a major double die, two categories that independently command enormous premiums, but together multiply value exponentially. And the Denver Mint mark adds further intrigue because Denver has historically produced some of the most dramatic modern errors due to its massive output and reliance on automated systems that, when stressed, can produce cascading failures. And another critical factor in the $12 million narrative is the presence of dramatic die breaks and retained cuts, where pieces of the die physically fractured and either fell away or remained partially attached, creating large raised blobs of metal on the struck coin that interrupt the design, sometimes covering parts of Lincoln's head, the date, or the rim. And retained cut errors are especially prized because they represent a frozen moment of die failure that could only occur for a brief window before the die was retired. And when such a retained cut appears on a double die 1984 cent, the resulting coin becomes essentially one of a kind, because no two die breaks occur in exactly the same way, and then comes the possibility of dramatic off-metal or wrong planchet strikes beyond bronze, because during the early 1980s, the mint was also striking other denominations and foreign coins under contract, and wrong planchet errors, while rare, did occur. And a 1984 cent struck on a foreign blank or an experimental alloy test piece would be instantly recognizable and extraordinarily valuable, especially if the strike were strong and well-centered. And adding to this already complex error profile is the potential for multi-strike errors, situations where a planchet failed to eject properly and was struck more than once, sometimes at different rotations or offsets, creating overlapping impressions, rotated designs, or partial blockage effects where the design of one coin is impressed into another. And while modern presses are designed to prevent such events, failures still occur, particularly during jams or sensor malfunctions, and a multi-struck 1984 cent that still clearly displays the doubled ear, die cracks, and other diagnostics would be visually stunning and historically significant. And then there is the role of die clashes, where obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet in between, transferring ghostly outlines of Lincoln's portrait onto the reverse or elements of the Lincoln Memorial onto the obverse. And while minor clashes are somewhat common, extreme clashes with bold mirror details are rare and highly collectible, especially when combined with other major errors, and condition becomes the final amplifier of value, because while many error coins survive in circulated or damaged states, the hypothetical $12 million 1984 cent would need to be preserved in exceptional uncirculated condition, with sharp details, minimal post-mint damage, and clear visibility of every error characteristic, because elite collectors are not simply buying rarity, they are buying visual impact and narrative power, a coin that instantly tells its extraordinary story the moment it is seen. And authentication is the gatekeeper that transforms legend into reality, because only coins certified by top-tier grading services with detailed error attributions can command prices in the millions. And once such a coin is confirmed, the market dynamic shifts completely, because supply effectively becomes one, and when ultra-wealthy collectors, institutions, and registry competitors chase a single trophy coin that defines a generation of Lincoln set errors, price becomes secondary to prestige. And this is why the 1984 cent continues to generate whispers, private offers, and intense speculation decades after its release, because unlike ancient gold coins locked away in museums, the 1984 cent began its life as ordinary pocket change, meaning there is always the tantalizing possibility that an even more extraordinary example is still out there, hidden in a jar, a drawer, or a forgotten roll.